and unmute your microphone. Thank you.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Emma Dixon. I formerly worked with the Learning and Work Institute, formerly known as NIACE, and I'm now an associate with the Education Training Foundation, working on a pipeline for Black and minority ethnic staff in FE and the training sector, hence my engagement in this webinar today.
Helen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, my name's Helen. I work for Haringey Adult Learning Service as a Learning and Employment Support Officer.
Thank you, Helen. Any of the colleagues who are able to talk to us and wish to introduce themselves, please do so now. Thank you. I'll take that as a no, and we've all seen your introductions in the chat, so thank you for that. Alex, would you like to make a start by introducing yourself and then taking us through your presentation?
Hi, yeah, of course. Thank you very much for joining us today. As Yaya said, my name's Alex Baghurst. I've been managing the FE Providers Equality Network since 2007. Can't believe it's been that long, actually. But it's been a network that's grown over the last 8 to 9 years. We've got members from across the country and from all different types of provider as well. So private training providers, colleges, adult and community ed, and so on. It's a free network, so anybody can join. If you're not already a member, then I can certainly arrange that following today's session for you. So our main objective is to support FE and skills providers to embed equality in everything that they do, and more specifically, the focus is around the teaching and learning environments and the delivery of learning and skills. In practical terms, that means we do a newsletter every month, and I'll talk about these things in a bit more depth in a moment. The newsletters, we do a diversity diary every year, or we have done for the last 3 or 4 years. We do e-learning, and we've managed projects and delivered a range of other material as well. So I'll just try and move the presentation on. Here we go. Just to make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of the basic definition of embedding, we'll just cover that quickly. I also want to introduce to you the newsletter, the diary, and the LGBT Empower toolkit as well. Thought it'd be really good to have an opportunity to hear about your challenges and requirements, if you'd be willing to share those and perhaps other good practice and resources that you've come across or that you use and have found particularly useful. And any other questions that you may have, of course, as we get towards the end of the session. Actually, as Yaya may have said, please do sing out, during the presentation, and if you've got any questions, and we'll deal with those as and when they come up. Okay, so by embedding, essentially we're talking about making equality central to our practice in the delivery of teaching and learning. Sometimes you'll hear the word promotion alongside that, or instead of. It's certainly a word that crops up if you read Ofsted reports. I think they use it probably because it maybe sounds more impactful than embedding. It's embedding that leads to actual promotion of equality and diversity.
Amma, would you like to come in?
Yeah, just a quick question, Alex. You said about embedding in teaching and learning. Do you do anything around embedding in recruitment practices, in supporting staff, or is it just around the teaching and learning, nothing to do with staff progression and promotion?
Certainly the updates that we send around will cover all areas. So take the newsletter, for example, then anything that we have to update the sector or any of the other equalities networks, there are many of them, have to share with colleagues, then we'll certainly promote those. The resources that we tend to produce, those in recent years, have been more around the delivery of teaching and learning, because that's where we've decided to focus upon, because that's where we get the most requests for guidance. But in some of our resources, they can be translated to good practice in all sorts of areas. And hopefully throughout the session you'll pick up on that, and there's links that we've shared before the session, and we'll share again, so you can hopefully see that in a bit more detail. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
So just looking into the definition of what embedding or promoting might mean, I appreciate, hopefully you can see the promoting slide on your screen now, and it looks a very busy slide, lots of information on there, but what we've essentially done is taken all what we think we're talking about in terms of embedding and promoting good practice, and we've tried to map it out using the acronym promoting. So on there you can see resources, and within that there's 5 subsections. Theme, for example, looking at key individuals that you can use within your delivery, the business case, the global market, and so on. So I'm not going to work through all that now because we haven't got time, and it'd be probably a bit heavy over this format, but it may be something useful that you could use to do a soft audit on your delivery and training, and perhaps focus your own training and development of staff, and see if there's any gaps that you might have, or areas that you may wish to develop. Some of the newsletters that we've created have looked into these in a bit more detail, and we can certainly provide you with copies of those if that's useful. Just wanted to mention quickly a project we was involved with last year, which was called LMAG, which was the Excellence in Leadership and Management and Governance. And our network, in collaboration with all the other equalities networks that formerly NIACE supported, came together, and we produced some cue cards for those project managers. And we came up with a series of challenging questions and points which we think were quite useful, and perhaps go beyond the norm of just talking about protected characteristics or things that might crop up in an Ofsted report. So, for example, looking at potential prejudice of your curriculum content, and not looking at individual protected characteristics, but multiple identities as well. And again, this is something that you could perhaps look into after the session when there's a bit more time. But if you have the original slide, this is something you could use in your own training to stimulate debate, perhaps, or you could even use as posters. Posters is something we actually get a lot of questions about, because we do calendars and other things, but people seem to be asking for posters and things that they can put on walls and screens, so that equality is there for people to see all of the time, and they're getting constant prompts. So I hope that becomes useful, and as I say, that will be part of the presentation that you get access to. And there we see is the second slide. Again, it could serve as a bit of a checklist, really, from understanding the sector challenges to are we actually putting people first? Do we recognise the multiple identities and challenges that perhaps doesn't come out in the data that we have to analyse throughout the course of our daily business? So I know one or two of the participants that enrolled on the session mentioned about Ofsted and being interested in what they're looking for, which is obviously a concern for all providers. So I thought it'd just be useful to include a few excerpts from a recent report. Truro and Penrith College were the first outstanding college, I understand, and their report was published in April. So largely positive comments there. First one, leaders and managers promote equality and diversity well across the college. Learners are prepared extremely well for living and work locally or further afield in more diverse communities. And I think we've all picked up on in recent months and years about this idea of preparing learners well. And in line with British values, which has been a key topic obviously recently. They talk about preparing learners for life in modern Britain quite frequently. I thought it was interesting though, that even though they were outstanding, there was a comment around how excellent practice in many lessons to help learners appreciate and value diversity is not replicated by all teachers across the college. So I think that's a huge challenge for providers, that we have pockets of really excellent practice and people that are really flying the flag for equality and diversity, but getting everybody to do that is a different challenge altogether, and that's been picked up in this report, even though they're an outstanding provider. I don't know if anyone would like to comment on that, whether that's a key challenge for them in terms of a consistent and excellent approach to embedding throughout their workforce.
If you're not able to speak to us, please do put your comments in the chat and we'll read them out.
Yeah, I think again, Alex, this is linked to what I was talking about earlier, the lack of BAME staff represented across FE, and the staff, the lack of training for the staff that we do have across FE, which, you know, produces this culture. And hopefully some of the work that we're doing with the ETF will go towards challenging that or somehow rectifying the situation a little by supporting more BAME staff to progress, and also to support staff within the sector to adopt more progressive practice. And that's all staff, not just BAME staff, but all staff across the sector.
Yeah, absolutely. And I haven't mentioned yet, obviously, the issue of that resources that people have, you know, the requirements that are placed upon us, whether it's legislation or Ofsted or generally just trying to do the best for our learners, is becoming more of a challenge because of the resources, the lack of resources that we have now. And I know the network for Black professionals is sadly no more. But if you've got anything that you'd wish to share with the group, Emma, then I can certainly send that out through the follow-up about your new work that you're doing with the ETF. That would be much appreciated.
Yeah, will do. There's a comment, sorry.
Also from Eileen, that saying in the chat that they were inspected in March with the same feedback. Consistency with all teachers is challenging. And Eileen works as a learning and skills manager in Darlington, so that's in Darlington.
Okay, thank you very much for that. It'd be interesting to know any strategies that you've put in place or looking to put in place following that. I know some providers are using the staff that are observed as excellent to help other staff, maybe in focus groups or as buddies or mentoring type roles. But I certainly think that is a huge challenge, especially across the larger providers. Might be staff that have come straight from industry, and it's tackling subjects that are probably way out of their comfort zone in some cases. So thank you for the feedback on that. I'll just move on to the next slide, because I'm just conscious that we've got some more material to get through. So the newsletter, which we do every month, anybody can contribute to this. The bulk of the content is around news, which is not just relating to the sector, although that is included, of course. It's any news that might be relevant to us. So it could be legislation or issues relating to the workforce, and we include a brief overview of what these online articles might say with links to further information. So it's best used as an electronic resource, and we send that around in PDF format, but also a Word version as well if the PDF isn't proving accessible. But if anybody has anything that they'd like to share, or a question that they would like to pose to the network via the newsletter, then we'd always love to hear from you. but the feedback that we do get is that it is quite useful, and the mixture of event opportunities and good practice, equality dates that we promote just helps keep people informed. If anybody's seen the newsletter or find it useful, then that would be great to hear. You can either let me know now or following the session, and also if you've got any ideas on how we can improve it, whether that's the format or other things that you would like to see included, then please do let us know. Is there any?
Yes, if I can just bring to everyone's attention the comment that Craig has made, which is that the issues that they experience is that equality and diversity is often covered in lessons and is covered in work, but sometimes it is difficult for staff and learners to recognize EDI topics when they come up naturally as part of a different theme.
Okay, yeah, sure. If that's in terms of the evidencing of it, can be very difficult. And firstly, there's identifying the opportunities in the first instance and making sure that if it's, for example, a comment that's been made that should lead to further conversation, then the staff has got to have the sufficient training and background to be able to pick up on that and follow it up with the learners. But also evidencing that can be quite difficult if it's a conversation that you've had rather than a written piece of work or an electronic piece of work. What some providers are doing is having a repository where they can collect evidence online, which everybody should be aware of where it is, perhaps as part of their VLE, and where evidence of different formats can be deposited in there. So rather than trying to run around and gather that when Ofsted are coming in, because we only get a few days notice now at best, then that's been built up as you go along and can be used to drive good practice as well.
One of the recommendations that I've made to the ETF has been around more equality, diversity and inclusion training to be made available not only via the LMIG portal but through all of their links as well. And this is not just our bog standard equality, diversity training about raising awareness, but it's about challenging, changing hearts and minds. Really, it's that kind of equality and diversity training that we're trying to hopefully make available across the sector. So yeah, fingers crossed and watch the space. And I will take the opportunity to promote anything that comes out of the other end of the report through the newsletter.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. One of the things that we wanted to cover today was the diversity diary, and as I said earlier, we have done this for the last 3 or 4 years, where we create an academic diary. So it runs from August through to July, and it includes obviously the key dates and celebrations, things that you can use to help raise the profile of various equality themes throughout the year. The last couple of years, we've been very fortunate in that we've had funding to make it freely available to providers. So thanks to Katina and in a previous role at NIACE, she's helps us with that. And if you visited our network website before the session, which is equalitynetwork.co.uk, you'll find on there the monthly files and the master file on there. So if you wanted to arrange your own printing of diaries for yourself and for colleagues, then you can do that. Or we have a printer that you can get low-cost hard copies from, which is about £2.50 or £3 this year, I think it will be. But they've proved extremely popular across the network, and I know our printers printed off hundreds, if not more, of these resources. I'll just click on to the next slide, which will just show you a bit more in terms of what it looks like. So we have information about all the other different networks and useful websites at the front for people to use. And we have a monthly preview, and then on each of the pages, let me just scan through. Here we go. So there's just an example of a page. So when it starts in August this year, you'll see what's been celebrated. World Breastfeeding Week starts in August, and underneath that you can see reminders for what's coming up in that month. So we would record a reminder when something is a month ahead, so it's on your radar and you'd be thinking, oh, what can I do for that? How can I help promote it? How can I build it into a session? And then a week before as well, so you can firm up any plans that you've got. As well as the events, we've got other information in there on the daily pages as well. So you can see on the right hand side there some information from the handbook from the Common Inspection Framework, which will just tell you a bit about what it says in there, what's expected, and we'll ask reflective questions as well about your own practice and if you've got things in place that are driven by the framework. Also, you'll see in there information from various projects over the last few years, which you can still get the reports from, by the way, and the good practice that's come out of those projects as well. So all in all, we think, we hope it's been a really useful resource, and the feedback that we've been getting certainly would indicate that. I'll just show you briefly, if you can see this. This is what it looks like in the flesh. This is this year's diary, printed up in A5 booklet format. It's ring bound, fairly durable actually, and I hope that is something that people will find useful. And if people have seen those, or even if it's you hearing about this for the first time, I'd be really interested to hear if that's something that you would find to be of benefit, or if there's something that you would change, or if there's something that you would like to see in there that already isn't. I did send a link through before the session to a full month sample, so you can download the whole of August and the introductory pages to take a look at those. So we were keen to get some input before we pressed ahead with any plans for 2016-17. Does anyone have any comments on the diary, previous use, or ideas moving forward?
Yeah, when's the app going to be available?
Sorry, the app?
Yeah, so you can just download it into your phone and all that populates your calendar. Yeah,
that's a great idea, actually. I've actually looked into that. There might be a possibility of doing that with an iCal file, which we'll be able to populate, which would obviously be ideal. I'm just not sure how it translates into the different calendars, if we could have one system that does it for all, but certainly that's something I'll take back and see if we can move that on. I know we had the same question last year as well. If the information was already there on your screen every day, that would be really great, wouldn't it? Anything else on the diversity diary? No. Okay, I'll move swiftly on then.
Thank you, Alex.
Something else which is free, and it has been since we created it about 3 years ago now, or the latest incarnation of it anyway, is an online toolkit which is around LGBT equality, lesbian, gay, bisexual and trans equality. And it was born from a project that we did here in North East Lincolnshire. And part of that project was to come up with an e-learning module, which actually takes an hour to complete in most cases, often shorter than that. And it takes trainees through a lot of information regarding LGBT equality, good practice from the sector. It is sector specific for FE and skills. It's assessed in mini sections throughout the module. And at the end, the users can download a booklet and their certificate as well. So they get their certificate and an hour's CPD, we recommend, from that. I'll just show you a couple of screenshots. With it being 3 years old now, we think it is due for an update. It's something that we might be able to arrange if people would find this useful. It is just a case of logging onto the website and starting the training. It does have to be completed in one go, so you can't come back to it as you're not creating an account. But we're quite pleased in that it is a project that's 3 years old, and this is still being used on a daily basis, which is hopefully giving the funders value for money, and that's why we keep it up online, so people can use it. I keep getting emails pinging through saying that someone else has completed. So I think that's really positive news. And we tend to have a spike in usage around LGBT History Month in February, Idaho Day in May, but it is used all the way around and can be used to complement other staff training as well. Has anybody used that or think they might be able to use that in the future?
I used it, and I showed my 16-year-old, and she wants all her friends to do it.
Oh right, okay, that's really positive. I mean, it originally was designed for staff, but
I know.
many learners.
I know.
That's great. I mean, if obviously anybody at all can use it, with it being sort of an open resource on the internet, so that's really good. And we can actually see the comments that are coming through as well. There's an opportunity for trainees to feedback, and we do get constructive feedback in most cases on how we might improve that. Okay, any other comments on that before I move on? Okay. So, bit of an opportunity for you to input here in terms of your challenges and requirements. What are you finding most difficult, or looking at resources that we might release in the future? What are your biggest challenges and areas of development? Be really interested to hear about that, and obviously for us as a network, and we'll feed that back to the Learning and Work Institute as well.
Well, we've had a comment from Eileen that she's never used it, but will definitely do in future for all service.
Okay, that's good to hear.
And that's in Darlington.
Okay, great. Well,
Sorry, Alex, go on.
No, that's fine. I was just going to move on. If no one's got anything to say, that's fine. But people can chip in as and when, if that's okay. Was there something that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I was going to say, when the ETF are going to put out an invitation to tender quite shortly for the Black and Minority pipeline for staff, and it would be good to have a conversation with you at some point about any really good EDI training or providers who are, who've got some good practice that we could share to inform that ITT.
Yeah, sure. Okay. I know there's a lot of great free training out there, and
yeah. So if you could point me in that direction, for example, that would be really good.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And we'll follow that up in the newsletter as well, and we'll try and build a list that we can send around to people's top training that they do use.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Okay.
Alex also and colleagues from Eileen to say that there are lots of materials for young people, but struggling to find for older adult learners, material for older adult learners.
Yeah. I think that is a challenge. FE and skills, obviously, we've got people of all ages there, and often the focus tends to be 16 to 19. And creating resources which are suitable for all ages can be a challenge. But we could maybe break down any list that we come up with and say who it's suitable for, rather than this is a good resource for FE and skills. Like this is ideally for 16 to 19, or potentially older age groups as well. So I think that's an important point.
Craig has also commented that they have an equality plan questionnaire that we ask learners to complete outside of mandatory equality information required for funding purposes, so that we ensure that all learners have equal opportunities to complete their programs. However, the learner buy-in to this process is very low and is often considered by them to be more red tape.
Right, okay. Yeah, I think that can be difficult, and I can see the benefits of having it outside of any other process. I guess if those equality themes are covered within other surveys, you are going to get more feedback, because you get more people completing the global surveys, if you like, which is it's a good point, and I don't know if anybody else has got any suggestions there of how to increase buy-in on those. I mean, there is incentives, obviously, and some providers do use those with I don't know, a free tablet or something if they've got the resources to do that, to encourage participation.
I was going to say make an app.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a rallying cry, but on a serious note, something that's a bit more interactive and sexy and appealing, not only to young people, but to most people. So I'm often, when you go to PC World now, you just got to click as you exit, either a smiley face or an upset face or whatever, to say what your experience has been like. And it's literally one tap as you walk through the door. I'm more minded to do that than to fill out a questionnaire if it turns up, or to have a conversation with somebody on the phone. So something that's a bit more sexy and interactive, especially in 2016, I think would be much, makes it much more appealing, much more engaging. But I know it's money, and where do we find the funding for that?
Yeah, sure. I'm not sure, Craig, is that something that you've considered to get more buy-in?
I'm sure Craig will type in his response in the chat, but in the meantime, to say to Craig and to colleagues that the event that I mentioned at the start of the webinar, the Festival of Identity, next week, is going to, well, dwell quite a bit on the issues of monitoring not being as effective as the intention has been ever since the really Race Equality Act, so some 50 years now, and look at some new ways of doing so, and new ways that are relevant to the learners, new ways of doing that makes people feel that they can actually identify with the questions and wish to answer those. But some approaches to how not to make that process repetitive, and something that people will relate to as red tape will also be highlighted at the event, and then we'll be looking to secure a buy-in for that new way of looking. So a lot, you can get an idea as to what we will be talking about from looking at the event information. And if you're able to join in either in person or through live streaming, that will be great. And if you've got any questions about that, you can please email me after the session, and I'll be happy to answer or forward on. Speakers also said that they're open to other ideas and keen on developing further using technology.
Okay, thanks, Yaya. I'll just move on then for the time being.
Thank you.
Do keep commenting, everybody, if there's anything that you want to contribute. So I think we've already asked that about what free resources are helping you, and we try and include a feature on that in the newsletter that goes around every month, to try and promote those resources that are proving useful. Chances are, if one provider is finding them useful, then they will be useful to others as well. Opportunity to ask any final questions. I'd just like to remind you about the diary, and do have a look at the full month sample on there. I should just point out, as well as being a diary, it's something that you can work through and use it as perhaps inspiration for any staff training that you might have. You can copy and paste any of the content, essentially use it as and when you see fit to advance equality in everything that you're doing. And we try and keep it current. We do change it every year. So, for example, this year, one of the months focuses on prevent, reinforces those principles, and the promotion of fundamental British values as well. I think we've had more questions around that than anything else this year. So we've included some daily entries on that and some reflective questions as well, including some sources where you can find more information and guidance on that. If you wouldn't mind dropping an email after you've had a chance to look at that, and just to say, even if it should say, I would find this useful, or how about this, or what about doing this for next year, this year, that would be much appreciated. Even if it's just a few lines, it will just help our case for getting that funding for next year. Is there anything else anyone would like to ask or contribute?
We'll just give colleagues a few moments in case they're typing into chat, because it may take a while. In the meantime, I'm going to drop the link to the Festival of Identities in the chat for everyone, and then you can, if you haven't already, have a look at the activities, presentations and workshops, and see if it is possible for you to join us, and also if it might be of interest to someone who hasn't found. It is a pop-up festival, hence the short notice, but we do hope that because it's a menu of different events, that people, especially if they happen to be in London or can join through live streaming, can just dip in and out into session as per their interest. Any feedback on Alex's session today would be most useful, and getting some already from Eileen that definitely will feed back and loves the diary. And there's a smiley face, Emma, as well. Thank you, Eileen. And from Craig that thinks it's important to develop local networks and peer reviews for collaboration.
Okay, that's great, thank you. I know from my time working in an FE college, I was working in the Equality and Diversity at our local college here in Grimsby for about 5 years, and we were very active in terms of local networks, whether it be disability or LGBT or equality in general, and they were really positive. But as many providers have, less providers have a dedicated E&D person now to drive those forward, and sometimes I think those relationships are lost, which is a shame. And providers are having to be a bit more creative now in terms of how they engage with those groups.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for your time, everybody. And I'm sure there'll be things that that pop up you think about after the session, and they do drop us a line, and we'll follow those up certainly.
Thank you, Alex. And colleagues, I know it's your precious lunchtime hour or so, so it's great that we're able to finish a few minutes earlier and wrap up earlier. As a wrap up, just to remind everyone that on the Equalities Toolkit, there are daily tweets about training, learning and assessment resources based on the current affairs, things that are happening, that are being posted there, that tutors and others can use in their provision, so that it is relevant, it's something that people can relate to, but also go away and research for themselves. And the Equalities Toolkit is also where we will be putting the slides that Alex has used in today's webinar, and the video of this webinar will be uploaded to YouTube, and you will be able to access it through the Equalities Toolkit. But also, if ever you hear of colleagues who would have liked to join this kind of session or be introduced to the network and the resources but haven't been able to do so, then the webinar may be a great way for them to see what it is that the network offers and what resources they offer. Thank you for your comments in the chat and for joining us today. And just the final 30 seconds for your last contributions.
Just to say thank you. Thanks, Alex. Really informative, and look forward to catching up with you after this to talk about that piece of work with the ETF. So please share my details if you don't already have them. I'm sure Yaya or Katina can provide. Yeah.
Yes, I'm happy to be a go-between with sharing any contact details or colleagues who have joined us today. And thank you very much, Alex. That's been most useful. I am going to stop recording now, and I will then end the meeting and look forward to seeing you either virtually or in person soon. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.